CDAC is, which NIXI in collaboration with the CDAC Bangalore is organizing as a part of the National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So globally, the month of October is being celebrated as the National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And every country is doing their bit to contribute to this cause. And NIXI, or the Indian government, Ministry of Electronics and IT, and all the organizations who are part of this cybersecurity drive in the country, they are contributing their bit. So it's a kind of a joint effort. It's a kind of a joint initiative which we have done. And we have chosen the date 1st of November for this. Because it's just the beginning of the November month, but it's part of the same awareness program which other organizations have done. So cybersecurity is something which I'll say it's become a part of life of each and every individual's life nowadays. And the more we are connected, the more safeguarding of our digital identities and how we behave digitally, that's a kind of, I'll say it's more important for each one of us. There's something which is being said that the more we share, the more we are there online, the more we must care about how we conduct ourselves. So today's session, the webinar which is being organized is on the topic, the role and types of DNS abuse in cybersecurity. And I'm really thankful to the CDAC Bangalore team, Dr. Balaji, and the entire team over there. And our manager registry, Mr. Rajiv Kumar, who has taken this initiative in conducting this webinar. So I hope that this entire web session will be helpful for all the participants who will be attending this particular webinar. This will help us in sensitizing not only us as an individual, but how we can contribute to our organization, how we can contribute to our surroundings in making the entire the entire ecosystem much more secured, the entire cybersecurity more secure. So with this, I would like to hand it over to Dr. Balaji to take it from there. So I'm sure this entire session will be fruitful for the entire audience. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Shubham, for the nice introduction. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are loud and clear.
So, I'll just share my slides. Just give me a moment, please.
I would also like to share just a moment by the time you put up your slides. So today it's an important day. We have just come back. NIXI has launched its 10th Internet Exchange Point today. The event was, the inauguration was done by Honorable Minister of State, Shri Rajiv Chandrasekharji, in the presence of Mr. Anil Baluni, the MP, Rajya Sabha, and our Honorable Secretary, Sir, Shri Ajay Prakash Sahni. So this is the first internet exchange which we have launched at Uttarakhand. So we are just trying to contribute to the bit to the making the Uttarakhand digital or the internet ecosystem much more secure. So it's a kind of it's a kind of a good day for NIXI.
So that's a nice news and good news to start with the day.
Yes.
I'm just sharing my screen now. So let me just know whether it's everyone able to see this. I hope, is it visible to you?
Yes.
So, so we are geared up to start, am I right? Or we should wait for...
Sure. So we can wait for 1 or 2 minutes more.
Sure.
And then we can start.
Yeah.
Dr. Balaji, we may start, please.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. So good afternoon to all of you. I hope I'm audible, and please feel free. This is going to be the first. We'd like to start with the basics of DNS, and then we'll get into the abuse of DNS and what is happening in the country will be discussed. So let me start without further much of ado to this. So what happens behind the scenes when you just type a domain name or the URL in the URL address bar of your browser? Say, for example, I have taken an example of coednssecurity.in, which is basically our website, our project website. So when you type this coednssecurity.in in your browser, it has to, the browser actually is calls up the protocols, which is there for HTTP. And then, of course, it adds HTTP, this being a web page, so HTTP. And then there is the entire stack of protocols out there in your system. So what happens is your application layer, we call it as layer by layer. Of course, I hope you will all be understanding. So application layer, basically what happens is it sends communication to the transport layer, which is in TCP, and it constructs a TCP segment. And then the TCP segment actually have to contact with the network layer. The network layer where the router is there. And then further it takes communication with the data link layer. And below this, you have the physical wire and medium. So now, as you can see in this example, as you type coednssecurity.in, your connection has to be established from your browser to the server, which is running this website, which is containing this program coednssecurity.in, that actually the connection has to be established. So how the connection is established? Obviously, it has to, your application creates TCP segments, and after that, it has to communicate with the router. And for that, while communicating with the router, as you can see, let me go step by step here. So once you type, let us say if you're typing HTTPS, ours is HTTPS coednssecurity.in, if you're typing, the transport layer has to specify the port from which it is, that is your browser will tell which port it is actually communicating from. And then the destination, basically when I mean to say port is nothing but a landing point, that's all. So you can imagine as a landing point. So in the server machine, the landing point for HTTP traffic is 80, and the landing point for HTTPS is 443. Okay, so anything which you type as HTTPS coednssecurity.in, it lands in the port number 443. So this is by default actually. So the destination ports are default. The source code port can be anything from your machine. Okay, I think we'll come to the questions in a moment of time. If it is any audio issues, please let me know. Okay. Then what happens further is you go down to the network layer, and network layer you need to tell or find out the IP address of the machine which is containing this coednssecurity.in website. So this question, this is basically your IP. 202.141 is basically the IP from which you are communicating. That is, your browser is communicating to coednssecurity.in. Now the issue is you have to find the IP address of the machine which is containing this one. Okay, so this particular question can be answered only by the DNS server. Okay, the entire part of DNS is to find an answer for what is the IP address of coednssecurity.in. That is the main job of it. Okay, so unless otherwise you get an answer, you will not be able to establish a connection to this particular system, and then only you'll be able to get it. Of course, then further you need to find out the MAC addresses, that is the destination MAC address and things like that. And then you get connection to the wire and things like that. So this is basically the flow which happens. So in total, the main point here is to translate a domain name to an IP address. That's the entire thing. Okay. The DNS, that is domain name service, translates the IP address to a translates the domain name to an IP address. And of course, it can do the vice versa also. Okay, so let me just show you this one. www.cdac.in actually gets translated to an IP address like this. This is IPv4 address, and this is an IPv6 address. Whatever you're seeing below 2405:8800 is basically IPv6 address. Now, you can do a reverse translation also possible. That is, from a given an IP address, you should be able to have the backward translation to cdac.in. And similarly, from here, you can see that if you IPv6 address, if it is given in the reverse way, you'll be able to find out the IP address, for the domain name of the given address also. So this is also possible. So DNS is basically a translation service which translates a given domain name to an IP address and an IP address to a domain name. So that is what is happening. So now let us see how to read a URL. So this is a very fundamental thing. You should always read a URL not from left to right, but you should always read from right to left. Okay. So for example, let us take this URL https://coe-dnssecurity.in. You should always start looking at the URL from the right-hand side of it. Okay. So, but before I tell you, you just need to always imagine a dot is there at the end point. Okay. You should always imagine there is a dot at the end point. And what you can think about is basically, say for example, if there is a dot at the end point and this dot actually refers to the root. Okay, this dot refers to the root DNS server. And this refers to a top level domain, that is .in. The .in actually refers to the top level domain. And coe-dnssecurity.in refers to the second level domain. So this is the organization of a URL. So when you look at any domain name, you should always read from the right to left. The right, always imagine that there is a dot at the end. Of course, this will be helpful for understanding later concepts. Okay. So this dot actually signifies the root, and this int signifies the top level domain, and coe-dnssecurity.in refers to the second level domain. Okay. Of course, there can be further additions here. Whatever, if you want training.coe-dnssecurity.in or tools.security.in, all those things can be there, but there will be further third level domains. Third level subdomains are the given domain. Okay. So what this means is this creates an hierarchy here. What you can see is here basically dot is the root, in is basically below the root, and coe-dnssecurity is below the in domain. And further, if you want to add anything, it will come below coe-dnssecurity. Okay. So when I am saying in, this is basically refers to country or country India. And this is a country level, top level domain, CCTLD. So this is how the structure of a DNS system is there. So for example, when you look at coe-dnssecurity.in, as I said that you should imagine as there is a dot at the right-hand corner. So here basically, from the dot, you can see that the next level is at in, that is DIN, and further basically you can see coe-dnssecurity.in, and below that you can see whatever the subdomains are there, dwayth.coe-dnssecurity.in. So this is how it works out. So for example, if you are looking at facebook.com, you start from, as I said, that the rightmost corner should be the dot, that is root server. Below root server, you have the com domain, and below that is basically the top level domain. And below com, you have Facebook, and below that you have whatever subdomains which you want to look at, www.facebook.com or whatever. So this is basically the structure of the DNS. And similarly, when you are talking about google.com, this looks like this. Okay. Meaning you start with the root, and below root you have com, and below com you have google.com, and below you have mail.google.com. So this is how it works out. So what does this DNS provide? It is basically a management of the namespace. That is, it creates a hierarchical namespace for referring to resources. Okay. So for example, in a same family, you cannot have two persons with the same name, right? Two siblings with the same name is not possible because the parents will get confused. So similar kind of restrictions are also there. You cannot have same name with meaning two siblings in the same level. Of course, so that's why we need to always have different names here. So consistent hierarchical namespace are there for referring to resources. So what I mean to say is in this example, say for example, in this example of google.com, I cannot have another domain which says as google.com. It's not possible. So siblings are not possible at the same level. So that is not an issue. So nodes at the same level cannot have same names. And this creates a hierarchical tree structure. And DNS is a very critical component of the internet infrastructure. So we will discuss that in a bit later. And this is a very globally distributed database. Okay, it's not that it is going to be located in few corners of the world. No, it is actually a globally distributed database, very neatly coordinated and distributed database, and a very scalable mechanism. You can have thousands and thousands of subdomains you can add and you can create them. And it is a very reliable database because there is the failure of the DNS server is very rare. And the one incident which happened was way back in 2013 or so, which was that also only partial. It was not even a failure of any of the designed, distributed, scalable, and reliable database. So we will look at what is the structure of the DNS. It is the structure of the DNS provides a decentralized naming system. So what do you mean by a decentralized naming system? In a decentralized naming system, I have the freedom to name. Okay, I have the freedom to name. So for example, what we call is, this is for example, in this COI DNS security.in, we'll call this as basically a zone. Okay, so below this thing, I can give any name. So for example, I have given Dvait. I can actually give whatever name, for example, tools.coidns.in or training.coidns.in. Any of the names which I am going to create below this is going to be my freedom. Okay, I have the freedom to create these subdomains below this. So that is the point here. So that freedom is basically is what I'm having. This is what we mean to say a decentralized naming system. Okay. So only thing is I can even have a COIDNS security.coidns.in that is possible, but it does not make sense. So only thing is here, if I have created COIDNS security.in, there cannot be another person who can create with the same name COIDNS security.in. That is alone is not possible. That is, siblings cannot have the same name. Otherwise, I have the freedom to create any name which I want below the subdomain. That is, I'm owning this domain. I can now create any names that I want below this. Okay, I can say files.coidns security.in, whatever it means. So DNS administration is shared and no manages or administers all the DNS data. So what data of the system available in the world? There is no single entity which is responsible for all these things in the world. So here responsibility is delegated. So for example, root management is done by an organization called IANA, which is under ICANN. So I will not get into that at this point of time because it calls for a separate session by itself. These domains are, these DLD domains are responsible for, or managed by different DLD operators. As far as IN is concerned, is basically a country level top domain. So NIXI, NIXI, where Mr. Shubham spoke, they are actually managing this particular domain. So they are responsible for it, and whatever comes under them, that they are actually have to ensure uniqueness. Similarly, COIDNS security.in actually is registered with IN. Now, this actually falls under my zone. So now I can create anything with or whatever files or whatever it may be. I can create whatever I would like to. So this falls in my freedom or in my line of action. So this particular zone, I am responsible for it. So I can create it, and this will not be, it's not that this data is public, but it's not that they hold NIXI will not, tomorrow I can change the IP address for with.coidns.in to refer to some other IP address, and .in will not bother about it. Okay, so .in will be only concerned about this particular domain name. There's the IP address of this location. Okay, the rest term is falls below because this is falls in my zone. So similarly, the root will be only concerned about this level. It will not be bothered about the further down levels. Okay. So this DNS looks and works like responsible entities is done here. Okay. And let us look at the resolution process, how it happens. So for example, when the client, when I say client, it is basically our browser, whatever we type. So for example, when it calls for COE DNSSecurity.in IP address, it goes to a resolver. The resolver is nothing but a system within a component of the DNS ecosystem, which finds the IP address for that particular COE DNSSecurity.in and responds. Okay. So the thing here is if there is already a search which has been made for this thing, the data would have been cached and kept. If the data is not available in this particular resolver, it has to go and find out what is the IP address of it. Okay, so it also first reads from the right to left, and first obviously it has to start with the root server. So root server, it goes and says where is .in. Okay, so root server replies that of the IP address of the .in name server. So once it gets the name server which is responsible for serving the .in domains, the DNS resolver will then communicate with the .in name server and ask what is the IP address for COE DNSSecurity.in. Okay, so then .in will have the list of IP addresses or list of the name servers which are serving COE DNSSecurity.in. So then it will refer to the name server of COE DNSSecurity.in. So then the DNS resolver will communicate with the COE DNSSecurity name server. Please remember, I'm not talking about the web. It will basically, this will name servers are nothing but these are entities which will tell which is the correct IP address for this particular domain. That's it. Okay. So this name server tells the name servers basically is going to tell the IP address of here for COE DNSSecurity, IP address for COE DNSSecurity. Okay, so that would tell. So it tells out the IP address, and then finally the result is passed on back to the browser. So let me discuss once again. The browser, as you type COE DNSSecurity.in, it reaches the resolver. Resolver is nothing but a component of the DNS infrastructure or DNS ecosystem, which will find out the address for this particular IP address for this particular domain. So what happens here is it communicates with the first, it actually, as I said, that you need to read the domain name from right to left, and you should always add one dot at the end, and the dot signifies the root name server. Okay, so it communicates with the root name server and asks for the IP address for .in. Okay, because that's the next one. So .in name IP address for the name server of .in is given. Okay, please remember that IP address for the .in name server, not the actual .in thing. So name server is what? Nothing but the server which will hold the IP address of the given this thing. We call this basically they are authoritative name server we will call, but I will not get into this at this point. So name server are nothing but servers which respond with the IP address, which are authorized to respond with the IP address for a given domain. That's all. Okay, so this will tell the IP address of .in name server, and the DNS resolver further goes next level and then ask for the COE DNSSecurity name .in name server from the .in name server. So .in name server says which is the server which is authorized to answer server that it says. So that actually comes as COE DNSSecurity.in name server. Then the DNS resolver again establishes the connection with the name server of the COE DNSSecurity.in and then gets the actual IP address. Okay, so this is the name server which is authorized and which provides the answer of the actual IP address. Okay, this is the thing. Okay, this particular name server is authorized to provide the answer for the given query. Okay, that is the purpose of the name server. So this is it. So this is the entire process of resolution which happens. So once this resolution of IP address has happened, this will be cached in the DNS system. Okay. this will be cached and the end process will not be flown, meaning it will not happen. Just the DNS resolver will retrieve the data from its cache and respond to it. Okay, so this is what happens actually. So technically, protocol, it operates application layer of the internet. It runs over UDP and uses port number 53. Okay. It also uses TCP, but that is only for the authoritative name servers, which actually have to communicate between master and slave. I will not get into this at this point of time. And it's not only whenever we are typing HTTP, this happens. Whenever you are using SMTP, all your emails. Say, for example, you are sending a mail to x.gmail.com or whatever, x@gmail.com or whatever it may be. This actually uses SMTP protocol. So SMTP protocol also have to figure out the name servers. Okay. So any application layer protocol all actually have to figure out the name servers, which is done by the DNS. Okay, so either HTTP or even today we are talking about streaming applications, everything actually need to have access to DNS. So the important thing is, if DNS is not able to work, then all these protocols will not be able to resolve to an IP address and therefore will fail. And you need to understand that no single directory exists. Okay, no single global directory which consists of all the data exists at any given point of time, because the data is distributed and every layer and every zone is independent against each other. So this is how it works. So the entire ecosystem of DNS is something like this. Browser, you can actually be accessing the internet or whatever it is, service from your laptop, mobile phones, or whatever it may be. So the browser will try to get the data if it is having it in its cache. Otherwise, it finds out from it connects to a DNS resolver. Okay, it connects to a DNS recursive 8.8, or it can be the one which is being provided by your ISP. Of course, you can also connect to any of the open resolvers which are available in the internet. So first, the resolver will try to see if it is having the data in its cache. If it is there, then it will fetch the IP address and give it to it. Otherwise, it will start trying to resolve the IP address for the given domain name. So once how it resolves, so basically it first approaches the root name server. Okay, as I said, you need to start from the right to left. So it starts with the root name server, and then from root name server it goes to the next CCTLD or the TLD like COM or what this thing, generic top-level elements it can be, and then after below that it goes to the further domain names, the name servers which serve a particular domain name. Okay, so this is how it works out. So these name servers which are given for a given particular domain name can be operated either by yourself or even your DNS service provider, whoever the domain name whom you have purchased from, they also can provide the name servers for you. Both are possible. So this is how it works. And now, any questions?
I think no question is raised by anyone.
Okay, if there is no question, then I have a question for all the people. Okay. So my question is this one. Yeah. Oh, some interesting answers are coming up. No, no, and yes with IP. So that I'm very happy to see that. My answer for this question in the slide is yes, but you need to know the address, and photos.google.com might refer to another IP address, and simply google.com will be referring to another IP address. All possibilities are there. So you need to have a wonderful memory to do it. And moreover, today, when you're talking about accessing a web, generally when you're talking today in internet, we are talking about web. So really, we are talking about accessing a lot of files. So of course, it is not a practical solution. So theoretically, yes, but practically, it's not really a possibility to do. Now, my next question for all of you. I gave you the answer also. Okay, so if it has, okay, if the DNS resolver has been poisoned with the wrong entries, then yes, you can actually do that. And for poisoning kind of attacks, you have the DNSSEC, okay, where the entries are authorized and put it up. So that is what the DNSSEC protocol is about. Of course, you need to understand that you have a probability of getting wrong answers if DNSSEC is not implemented. Okay, so now my next question. What is the answer for this? If DNS is not poisoned, then how do I land up in fake web pages? Sometimes I land up in fake web pages. Okay, spelling mistakes, phishing redirections, defacing of websites. Okay, phishing websites. Okay, great. So that's the right answer. This. Okay, great. So here you are seeing, this is a very famous one. Actually, the bank also had told that such kind of thing is not being sent by them. So people, it has been told that not to fall prey for this kind of things. So here it takes about the bank, which kind of wants the account holder saying that their documents has been expired and they need to reach this particular URL and to otherwise to unblock their account and things like that. So people wrongly get, meaning they wrongly click on this, and then of course domain squatting is also another thing. There are many things, but this is basically a tricky thing. So you fall prey for it, which a normal end user who is not aware of the technicalities will actually think that, okay, the bank's name also is there in the domain name. Okay, so that's why I told you that you should always read the domain name from the right to basically from the right hand side to the left hand side. So a normal user will get will not be suspicious enough, and he might click on and then probably end up providing his internet credentials and things like that. So it is always important to look into that. And one of the most fundamental things that you can do is look the domain names from the right to left. And second thing is basically not to click on links. As much as possible, try to type it in the browser. Only thing is nowadays Google does not allow you to complete it. It finishes, the browsers also finishes trying to do it. But okay, in the represents the country level top level domain, and then this SBI update KYC is here. Okay, so here this looks like a subdomain of straightaway under the in. Okay, if you look at that particular bank's website, they have their own their own top level domain. Actually, they can't be even in also. Basically, generally it will be SBI .SBI is also there and things like that. So here, basically, this is looks like a meaning, though it sounds very genuine, HTTPS and things like that, it is really a fake website. Okay, if you are a customer of that particular bank, you'll be knowing that how they it will be basically SBI.com spa.co.in. This is how you'll be knowing it. And of course, these days, in the past 6 months or so, they have their own new generic TLDs, GTLD, which is actually .sba. Basically, that's what they have as a very top level domain. So that is also there. So, but here in this case, this seems to be totally a different website, which is having absolutely, once you should see this kind of things, you should getting suspicious. Okay, the brand is somewhere here. Okay, the brand name is basically somewhere. No, this is not called hacking. This is basically a kind of what we can say is you are being tricked, basically phishing, or basically kind of basically phishing, or basically you are being tricked to fall into the trap. Okay, so this is the thing. And both these categories, okay, whether the DNS is giving a wrong answers or the DNS being misused to basically, this is a this thing, the DNS infrastructure is misused for abusive purposes. Then we call the both. So that's it. So any questions are here? Okay, thank you. I am anyway going to be there. So I would like to request my colleague, Mr. Hello, am I audible? Yeah, I request my colleague, Mr. Anup Kumar Pandey, to handle the session on DNS abuse. Over to you, Mr. Anup.
Thank you, sir. I'll just share my screen. Is my voice audible?
Yes, you are very much audible.
Okay. So in between, your voice was not coming. So I don't know if it was problem from your side or maybe my internet may be unstable. So I will not switch on my video, and I will directly share my presentation, and then we will try to know about few of the concepts. Okay, so is my slide visible?
Yes,
visible.
Okay, thank you. So the last question that Dr. Balaji asked is that related to that gas poisoning, and I saw many people responding with phishing, domain squatting, many terms which come into the category of DNS abuse. So I hope that most of the people will be knowing these terms, whatever I am going to discuss. Maybe they may not be knowing terminology, but I will give an example as well as the name so that you can relate with it. So DNS, as we know, it is for you have a domain name and you require an IP address, because computer knows only IP address, but we cannot remember IP address. So therefore, there is a system which maps this domain name onto IP address. Now, so this is the intended work of a DNS system. But then there are some malicious actors which use this DNS system to do two things. So either I disrupt the service of the DNS so that nobody is able to access it, or I use this DNS infrastructure to abuse someone else. So both things are possible. So DNS abuse, there is no, I will say, official definition. Many systems have given different definitions, but it is a malicious activity which is aimed to disrupt the DNS infrastructure, or using the DNS infrastructure to attack on someone else. So we will classify it in two terms. One is abuse of the DNS, where we are trying to disrupt the DNS infrastructure. So I will not let DNS to work. Or second thing, I will abuse using the DNS. So we can say this is like misuse of DNS instead of DNS abuse. Now, if I want to disrupt the DNS infrastructure, so how can we do? So like one denial of service is there. So somehow anyway, we will discuss all the attacks in detail, but for now, somehow we do something so that DNS infrastructure or any component of the DNS stops working. People are unable to resolve, people are unable to access the internet. Second thing what we can do is we can also modify the data of the DNS. So so you have heard about the zone data. So somehow we make unwanted entries in the DNS zone data, or we modify that existing any data, whether it is for a subdomain or whether it is for a name server. And then there are other examples of abuses using the DNS where we will use this DNS infrastructure to do some malicious activity. So like reflection attack, amplification attack, and tunneling attack for covert communication. So all these terms we'll try to learn in the upcoming slide. Now, first we will try to know what is the purpose that people or hackers are trying to abuse this DNS. So first thing is people may buy domains and use it for malicious purpose. So I am talking about not about disrupting the DNS infrastructure rather than abusing the misusing the DNS. So people or hackers buy domains for malicious purpose, and malicious purpose can be anything. So let's start from website content abuse, where the content of the website is abusive in nature. Okay, so like CSAM, which is child sexual abuse material, or maybe it is for human trafficking, or any material or content that can incite violence. People also use it for selling illegal or counterfeit products or medicines. So either it is illegal or duplicate. So this type of things are called website content abuse, where the content of a website is used for abusive or malicious purpose. Second part is data exfiltration. So in data exfiltration, basically a malware or a malicious actor carries out an unauthorized data transfer from a computer. So somebody accesses your computer and tries to transfer data from that system to some other system. So that also can be done using domain. So we'll see that how it can be done. Apart from them, there are various phishing techniques. Phishing is, as Dr. Balaji was saying, that we trick user into doing something for my own favor. So there are different kind of phishing, like like bait and switch is there, imitator is there. So imitator is like somebody has created a website which looks similar to onlinesbi.com. So you go to that website and then you are tricked into, just like you would have seen in the last slide, Dr. Balaji showed about SBI update KYC.in. So you go to SBI update KYC.in, it will look similar to, the theme will look similar to SBI because it will have SBI logo, that blue color theme, and people will be tricked into giving their own information. Then there are traffic monetization. So traffic monetization is that you go to some website, click on some link, and some money will be given to the whoever has published that URL for that purpose. Then there are surveys. So surveys are like you click on some link, there will be a survey where you give your data and thinking that it is for genuine purpose, but actually they are collecting data from the user. So that is another purpose. Then there are multiple scams. And most of these scams you would have either heard, or maybe you would have received this kind of email which lead to such kind of a scam. So one of the scam is the stranded traveler. So in a stranded traveler scam, somebody says that I went to some country, I'm in some country where my money, somebody took my money and wallet, and I'm stranded here. So you help me, you give me some money so that I can come back to my own country. So that is a stranded traveler. Maybe you would have received that thing. Then there is a advanced fee scam. So this advanced fee scam is I mean, most popular because even not only on website, it also works in like phone service. So somebody calls you that you can buy a few products from our website, and we will give you a laptop in the reward as a, like a lottery reward. And then only thing is you have to give us some processing fee of 2,000 or maybe 3,000 or 5,000 rupees. So some advance fee you have to give, and in lieu of that, we can give you a bigger reward, something like that. So that is advanced fee scam. Then we have lottery. You would have seen many lottery that you have won a UK lottery for $150 lakh and something like that. You provide us our detail, and in that way, people are duped into leaking their financial or even personal or private information. Then there are some shipping scam where some courier company, there will be a mail from some courier company saying that your shipment is stuck at this place. You have to pay this much of advance fee for releasing and delivering the merchandise to you. And similarly, there are romance scam where someone says that someone put someone else's photo to romantically involve with someone and then ask for money to come and meet. Now, apart from that, domains can also be used for malware distribution or command and control for a malware. One attack that someone mentioned was cyber squatting, or you also say it as a domain squatting, where a domain which is related to some other brand may be bought and kept as parked, and later it can be sold at a higher price to that domain. So for example, like if facebook.com is the main domain, what if someone purchases fb.com? It makes sense because everybody tells it it's FB. And later on, they try to sell fb.com to Facebook at a higher price. So that is domain parking. Well, domain parking is not totally illegal. It depends on country to country, law to law. So that is, so this slide talks about buying a domain and using it for malicious purposes. Then the second we will go is using the DNS infrastructure or using someone else's domain, not our own domain, rather than someone else's domain for carrying out some malicious activity. So one of the example is cache poisoning. So in cache poisoning, a recursive resolver stores the data which the query response for, like, suppose www.coadns security in its cache for some time. And that data is used so that it doesn't have to go again if someone in the network again queries for the same domain. So this cache can be poisoned, or basically we can somehow, so this is basically a trick so that a recursive resolver saves a wrong entry into the cache. So even though, so suppose, for example, for CDAC.in, somehow a wrong entry of IP address for CDAC.in can be saved. So now, even when you are trying to surf cdac.in, though the URL will show you cdac.in, but actually it may be some other website. That is the thing. So only the IP address which was there in the cache has been poisoned, altered, or polluted. So different terms, but it means the same thing. Then there are attack of obfuscation where you are trying to hide the attack somehow. So in attack obfuscation, there are multiple things. So like attackers try to shorten the URL. So instead of a big URL like SBA update KYC.in was there, which also works, but then you can give like bit.ly. Now, if it is a desktop, somebody can hover over their mouse and see what is the actual URL, or maybe open it in some other browser like Tor browser and see that where does it lead to. But it is quite difficult in mobile, because mobile anyway your screen is also limited, and the URL which shows in your browser, that itself is very limited. So so that's why attackers have a good chance that somebody will be duped. So they shorten the URL, and not only, many attackers, what do? They use shortening in recursion. So sort the URL, again use some other shortener for further shortening the URL, and so on. So 2-3 times you shorten the URL. Then others DNS means someone else's DNS domain can be used for hosting command and control for bots. So bots are basically systems which are infected, and then we can use those systems to launch attack on someone else. Then there is DNS hijacking. So DNS hijacking is also known as DNS redirection, where DNS queries are incorrectly resolved in order to redirect users to malicious website. So your query is fine, but the response which you receive is belongs to some other malicious website. So kind of a man in the middle, also you can say. Now this DNS hijacking is not only done for malicious purpose, it is also used for censorship. So in many countries, government uses this for censorship, redirecting users to some government authorized site. For example, in India also, if you try to access some torrent URL, so it may lead you to DOT website saying that this URL has been blocked or censored, something like that. Next thing is DNS data modification. So in DNS data modification, the entry in the DNS, like the zone data, basically, that is either changed or some additional entries may be done. So either the existing entry may be changed or additional entries may be done. So some of the methods which uses like in which additional NS records have been added to a zone data. So that is one method. And otherwise, the name server entry itself will be changed to the malicious domain. So in that case, the name server, suppose for COE DNS security, the authorized IP address will be CDAC, but actually somebody will change it to point to some other malicious IP address or malicious network. They will be redirected to that name server, and then that name server will take the command for our DNS security.in. So that is also possible. Then denial of service attack is there. So in denial of services, basically we try to launch volumetric attack on a DNS server. So in that way, what happened that DNS infrastructure will not be able to answer the response to legitimate users. So for example, that I will take an example of NX record. NX is non-existent record, means that domain does not exist. So a attacker, what it will do is it will keep sending non-existent domain entries to a server. And then server will keep saving the response in the cache. So keep saving, keep saving, keep saving. So it, so first thing first, its memory will exhaust. And second thing is it is involved in this so that it is unable to respond to legitimate users. The same thing happens with all query. In all query, basically we ask all the records pertaining to a particular domain. So like for CDAC.in, if I type nslookup -type equal to any and then CDAC.in. So what it will do is it will return all the records: www.cdac.in, mail.cdac.in, smtp.cdac.in, maybe hrms.cdac.in, and so on. So whatever subdomain entries are there on the name server for a particular domain, like for this example, cdac.in, all those records will be returned. Now, the situation becomes more difficult when it is DNSSEC enabled, because in that case, all the signed records, which are big, it's not small. So all the big records of the signed record RR6, that will also come in the all response. In fact, it's like if you send a 64 byte query, you will receive almost 3 to 4 KB of result. So you are sending less data in query, and it is returning more data in the response. So in that way, if we can try, we can mount a denial of service attack. Then there are man-in-the-middle attacks. So we already know that technically, first thing is that the data is UDP in nature. It is in plain text. So all these things invite a man-in-the-middle person to somehow modify the response. Okay, then the last thing is tunneling. So in tunneling, what do we do is actual data, we put it as payload of some other type. Okay, so suppose that there is a security on our gateway. So there is a gateway security which doesn't allow maybe torrent traffic. So what we can do is torrent traffic we can put as payload of a DNS data. And we know that DNS packets are allowed on the network, because if somebody is surfing the internet, so 53 port, the DNS port will be allowed. So what someone can do is put all the data into the payload of a DNS query and send it to outside a person. And similarly, other person, outside person, if he has to respond back, he can use the same protocol. So usually you would have heard about TXT record. So we can use the TXT record of a DNS query response for establishing a covert communication or a tunneled communication between one user to another user. So now the gateway security, or like UTM or firewall, it will think that it is a normal DNS data, but actually it is a torrent data, or maybe any other data. I'm just giving an example of torrent. Otherwise, it can be any data. Now, whatever attack I am talking about, so if you want to see the demo of that, so like tunneling attack is there. So for tunneling attack, one software is there, DNSCAT2, or then there is for reflection or amplification, there is DNSDR DOS2. So all these attacks, we have videos for these attacks. So you can go to our YouTube channel, and on our YouTube channel, all these videos which were used in previous demonstration. So we used to have DNS security programs under which we have uploaded videos demonstrating these kind of attacks, how these attacks can be mounted, cache poisoning or denial of service or tunneling attacks. All these attacks are built. So you can go to Indoreen channel on Indoreen, INREEN, Indoreen channel on Indoreen channel on YouTube, and you can see our videos. Okay, so so DNS infrastructure. In this slide, we will try to see where can we attack and what is the scope. And so it's a big infrastructure from registrant to registry to authorized DNS server to recursive resolver to a stub resolver. So multiple components are there. So where is the scope for attack? So anywhere between all these entities, there is always a man in the middle attack possible. That is the first thing. So anywhere the connection is there from like master to slave or master to recursive or registry to registrar or registrant to registry, anything, wherever there is a connection between two entities, there is a man in the middle attack possible. Then of course there is a software vulnerability. So if you are using any older version of software or any software which has a known CV, common vulnerability and exploitation, so of course there is a scope for exploiting that vulnerability. So that's why we should always keep our software updated. After that, we have already talked about cache poisoning or pollution, where the cache record for cache record which a recursive resolver keeps just to fast responding to its client, they may be polluted. There are data corruption. So whatever data is coming from registry to master, that can be corrupted. There is master slave architecture. Master slave architecture is basically for any authoritative DNS server, we keep two DNS servers. One will be called master, another will be slave. They both will have same entries. So whatever master has, same data slave will also have. So the benefit of this is active response, in which master can also respond to queries and slave can also respond to queries. But we can have update only at the master and slave will automatically take the update. So in this scenario, if we do not configure our software well, then somebody can impersonate as the master and slave will take unauthorized data update. Okay. So that is also possible. Now, so I'm going slowly, and I think if you have any question in between, you can write. Okay. So few culprits. So basically what we are trying to do, what I am trying to say is that who all are the culprits which are trying to abuse DNS. Okay. So there are hackers. Of course, we know that any hacker, he tries to access a system, try to steal data, or maybe do some kind of phishing attack, defacement, multiple things are there. Then there are scammers. So we already talked about multiple scams which scammers do. Then there are hacktivists. So what is a hacktivist? So hacktivist is basically hacker plus activist. So they have some political or social agenda which they are trying to prove. It's like proving a point. So for example, defacement of website. So Indian hacker defacing Pakistan website and vice versa. So that kind of activity. Those are hacktivists. Then there is human hacking. So human hacking is whatever, if you are duped by a scammer, so you have been hacked. So that is the human hacking, which also known as social engineering, where a human is tricked. So a human is tricked or duped into gaining financial, basically for that human it will be losing finance, but for the scammer it will be gaining the finance. Then there are DNS software vulnerability. So any software that we use, whether it is bind or unbind, so all those, whatever software we are using, we have to make sure that whatever it is up to date, or whatever, if we are using an older version, it is properly patched, or so DNS vulnerability is also a culprit in gaining access of the DNS infrastructure. Lack of DNSSEC. So what is DNSSEC? So basically DNSSEC signs any response from the authorized DNS server. So if I'm getting a response from COE DNS security, so it will be digitally signed so that we can verify and know that, okay, this response is really coming from COE DNS security, not from someone else. Okay, so signature, just like the human signature, it's DNS. So DNSSEC gives us a digital signature on the response, so that we can verify or we can authenticate that the response is originating from the real actual server where we send the query, not some man in the middle. So many organizations or many authoritative DNS servers, they have not implemented DNSSEC. And even if they have implemented DNSSEC, the keys are not changed. The key rollover is basically, the keys are not changed at regular intervals. So, okay. So the keys can be changed. The keys are not changed. Then there are some open resolver misconfiguration. So open resolver misconfiguration is something like that. You have a resolver which responds to everybody, and like that, all queries, which I was mentioning, all queries is enabled. So those kind of open resolvers can be used for attacking other attacking, like using a reflection attack or the amplification attack. And then we, of course, we have lack of a skilled manpower. So you are using bind, which is good, but somebody misconfigured it because he did not know what this option does. So these are few of the culprits. Okay, so why DNS is targeted? So we already know that though we can remember few IPs, we cannot remember all the IPs. So if someone disrupts the DNS, means it will disrupt the internet itself or disrupt the services. So whatever services, ranging from social media to e-commerce to government to e-learning, entertainment, everything will be disrupted. So it's easy to do. Then there are long attack vector which can be used for exploiting DNS, like malicious domain registration. So registering a domain is very easy. So many registration domains are free of cost, and even if it is you want to buy, barely it will cost you 100 rupees. From the starting you can get for a domain. Then DNS data is, there is no integrity check, okay, unless you use that DNSSEC. Otherwise, normally there is no integrity check. There is no authentication of the response, whether it has really originated from where I asked. Is it not from a man in the middle? All those things. But of course, these two can be mitigated using the DNSSEC. Then hijacking the name resolution process or even the registration process. So somebody is trying to register the website. That time itself, the data can be taken, or during the name resolution process where somebody is querying and getting a response, that process itself can be hijacked. Then then next scope is, there is large namespace. So you can have any domain name. There are billions of combinations, billions, trillions combinations are there. Then there are hierarchical data. So like we saw recently that dot is there, which is the root server, then .in is there, .org, the first level, and then second level and third level. And if you disrupt any upper level, so like if you disrupt root server itself, then below all you cannot access the domain which is below that level. Okay, I will leave the homoglyph type of squatting. So I think you already know homoglyph is basically two characters which look similar, like covid.info, O has been replaced with 0, I has been replaced with 1. Similarly, there is typo squatting where somebody misspelled or typed wrongly. So like online SBI, somebody missed a E and goes to online SBI, which looks similar to actual online SBI.com. And then there is Punycode where some special characters like umlaut N has been converted to a letter digit hyphen combination, LDH combination. Okay, so then DNS categories of DNS abuse. So there are malwares. So domains that can facilitate hosting or distribution of malware. So malware are basically any malicious software that can be used for disrupting or exploiting or taking control of someone else's system or exfiltrating the data to a remote system. So basically taking the information and sending it to some other remote information. Then we have phishing attacks where domains can masquerade as trusted website. So it will look like it is SBI, but it is not SBI. So that is masquerading as trusted website. Then we have botnets. So a botnet can be used for like DNS reflection and amplification attack. They are basically infected systems which can be used. They can be controlled and they can be used for launching attack on someone else. Then there are farming. So redirection using DNS hacking or poisoning, like you think that you are going to a SBI update KYC.in, but actually you are going to a fraudulent website. So that kind of redirection. Spams are there. So though spams are considered as unsolicited bulk email, but in this case, in case of DNS abuse, basically they are the couriers for the above, means bot or phishing or malware. So they are basically the delivery mechanism. So you receive a spam email in which some phishing link is there, farming link is there, and or malware is there as attachment. You click, you download it, and now you are hacked. Okay, these are some examples which you would have already received. Okay, so what is the difficulty in tracking such kind of attack? So first thing is that the data, whois data is bogus. So you can provide any whois data and then you can register your website. In some cases, there is a privacy protection mechanism where your data is hidden and maybe registrar, where you register, their data will be there. Then there is fast flux or double flux hosting, where whatever domain you have hosted, you change the IPs frequently so that it is difficult to track it is difficult to track the actual attacker. Then there is obfuscation, where you shorten the URL. We have already talked about that. Then our attackers, they are also good. They are sophisticated, motivated, either financially, politically, or personally, to take some revenge, or maybe just for fun. They are also creative. Then there is one more reason is the increase in the scale of IoT. So there are so many IoT devices, and then there are some vulnerability. Even if there is not vulnerability, many people do not change the default password. So in that case, somebody can use them as the botnet. Like you would have heard about Mirai malware. Then there is a slow attack in which you can attack for short duration, like 10 minutes, then next 10 minutes, and then 10 minutes, like that. So in that way, it will be difficult to trace the attack. There is easy to obtain TLS certificate. So nowadays you can obtain domain validated TLS certificate for free from like Let Us Encrypt. So it will show that it's a secure website, but actually it is a fake website, dupe website. There are famous attacks, but I think I have been asked to finish the PPT in 10 minutes, and which was at 5:10. So there are some famous attacks like 2013 spam house attack, which used misconfigured OpenDNS resolver and some networks which were allowed to IPS spoof. It lasted for 4 days, and Cloudflare company helped to mitigate this attack. So, and the attacker was just a teenager. Then there is a DIN, which is a DNS service provider, and there was a DDoS attack on DIN in 2016. And at that time, Twitter, Netflix, PayPal, all were inaccessible. In fact, there is a list of websites which were inaccessible, and it used Mirai malware, which used in turn more than 1 lakh malicious endpoints. The same IoT devices, from baby monitor to printer to any IoT devices which were on the network. Okay, next, DNS Espionage and Sea Turtle attack, which are the recent one, in which it's basically a attack campaign which used HTTP and DNS communication with command and control. They used a spear phishing email, and they changed the NS record. It was very slow, like they were attacking for 10 minutes and then 10 minutes and then 10 minutes, like that. They were also targeting TLDs like .sc, Sweden, and .cs. They did the data and intelligence gathering through email transcripts. So basically, they were sending a spear phishing emails, and from there they were gathering the data. The targets were primarily ISPs, telecom, law agency, national security agency, all those things, and they were primarily in the Middle East and North Africa region. So from this, you can see all the countries which were affected, including Lebanon, Sweden. In Sweden and Switzerland, the TLDs were attacked. NetNode was the company which actually maintains the SE domain, which was attacked. Then Quad9 you have heard. So Packet Clearing House is the company which manages Quad9, and that was also attacked. Lebanon Ministry of Finance was attacked. A couple of energy sector companies were also attacked. So you can learn about that on the Cisco Talos blog. Okay. So during during COVID times also, many domains were registered. So as soon as the COVID came, people started registering domains in the name of COVID, Corona, pandemic, SARS, lockdown, chloroquine. So these were the famous keywords which were used for the registration. And this data is from ICANN, and they said that out of 1.47 lakh websites which were registered between May to November, almost 9,000 were found to have some evidence of misuse, and out of which 2.5K were found with high confidence. So even in bad times, nobody is spared. Okay. So what are some checks and remedies which we can do for averting this kind of DNS abuse? Of course, these are not exhausted and not guaranteed, but at least these are some primary checks which someone can do it. One is like who is data. Now, who is data? You can, if you receive any URL like sbiupdatekyc.in, you can check when was it registered, or who is the contact person for that, whether it is really from SBI or not, and so on. Then from email, you can check the original. There is a, like in Gmail, if you go to, for any email, you check the show original option, in which it will check whether the email is a spam or not, means SPF, DKIM, and it will also trace out the where the email was actually originated. So you can check from that. Then URLs you can check. So URLs you can check like it is maybe it is some name brand misuse like geolottery.abc.com. So actually it is not from Geo because the main domain doesn't belong to Geo. Tata Lottery, Amul reward.abc.example.com. And then we have some long URLs. So there will be very, very long URLs which you maybe you cannot know whether it is really valid or not. But the base domain, so like abc.xyz.example.com. So this is a long URL. And example.com, if you try to find in URL, that website does not exist. Then TLS certificate check means you must check whether if the TLS is organization validated or extended validation, means it's a genuine. Domain validation is tricky. It may be genuine, it may not be genuine. Okay, then there is a safe browsing check. So Google has hosted a website for safe browsing status. You can put the URL there and you can check whether the website is safe to browse or not. There are URL filters which you can apply in your UTM or the gateway. And then there are tools like NSLOOKUP and DIG, which you can use yourself to check whether the domain is correct or not. Some remedies. So DNSSEC is one of the remedies. And if you want to know more about the DNSSEC, on our YouTube channel, there is already a video on DNSSEC, where we have not only told about how DNSSEC works, but also how you can implement it in your system server. So DNSSEC basically authenticates the record, and it will also maintain the integrity of the response. Then for mail security, there are SPF, Sender Protection Framework, and DKIM. And then there, of course, there is awareness. So like this kind of program should be conducted so that people know that what kind of attacks they can be subjected to. They should know about how these attacks work. There are open DNS resolvers, so you have to configure them well. So there should be access control, who can query, recursion, whether it should be allowed or not. Then all queries should not be allowed, that it receives a small record and sets all the records. All those should not be allowed. Then for a scam, okay, this is sort of fun. Don't believe too much on your luck. Means if you received a lottery for $150,000, don't believe it. 10 rupees recharge, maybe you can believe it. Endpoint protection. So endpoint protection is basically like you for your organization, you should have an endpoint protection in terms of like UTM or a firewall. So they also provide some sort of protection. So UTM is basically one device which has all anti-spam, so to anti-URL filtering, to firewall, to anti-bot, all those things are there. Then of course, TLS, you should only trust the organization validation and extended certificate, or otherwise you should check whether the certificate is valid or not. Then the reporting mechanism. So even after that, if you are somehow scammed, you should report, or if you have figured out that this is a website or anything which can be used for DNS abuse, then you should report to the registry. That's all. Thanks a lot. I took a lot of time, I think. So many things were to cover. Mostly you would have known, but still I thought that maybe I will cover and tell you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
I think, yeah, of course you have taken a lot of time. And I think we'll move to Rajiv. Rajiv.
Thank you, Balaji sir. You and Anup covered a lot of things, but I'm just showing some practical except how to go if you have any DNS type of role of DNS in DNS abuse. So thank you, Balaji, and thank you, Anup ji, to give me a chance, give me some if you brief all the things. So it is easy for me to explain all the things because you cover a lot of things like what is abuse. Yeah. Meaning of DNS abuse already covered by Balaji, and but there is any action done with high intention is abuse. So it's already covered, and anti-abuse policy. Anup is already covered all the points, but it is available on registry website. Registry has a policy as well. You can go through this URL and you find all the details there, even definition as well as the penalty of the domain used by for this type of abusive purpose. So I start with here. Here is the type of abuse received during 2019 to 2021. The phishing domain name in 2019 is the 767 and 1090 in 2020, and the drastically reduced in 2021. It is a 271 only. Farming is 62 in 2019. And 107 farming complaints received in 2020, and only 6 complaints received till date in 2021. Malware 2, and 2020 is 1, and 2021 is 1 only. Pornography in 2019 7, and 2020 is the 5, and 2021 is the 3 only. Scam 33 in 2019. Due to the COVID period, there is a lot of scam mailing going on. Is the 2020 is the 56, and 2021 only 3 spam domain name, which is scamming activity is done. So my presentation only covered the DNS, about DNS, and the role of 5R in the DNS industry. The first one is the registrant. Registrant is the end user who is the purchase the domain name. Registrant either purchase a domain name with reseller or a registrar. It depends upon the registrant choice. Registrant or reseller. Registrar is appointed by registry as a franchisor, as a domain seller on behalf of registry, and the reseller is appointed by registrar. So many registrar appoint reseller. Reseller can sell domain name on behalf of registrar. Registry includes the sponsor, registry sponsor, registry operator, and registry service provider. There is NIXI is the registry sponsor and registry operator. Currently, Universal Service Provider is the registry service provider of .in registry, and fifth one is the regulator. So if you go to a hierarchy base, there is a structure is the first regulator, then registry, then registrar, and then registrar. Here we can define all the things. Regulator is the ICANN. ICANN is the responsible to maintain unique identifier like IP address and domain name. Both are the uniquely defined. The second one is the registry. Registry is combination of registry service provider and registry operator. Registry service provider is the technical service provider which support backend services to the registry operator. In this .in case, NIXI is the registry, and Universal Service Provider is the registry service provider. We have a lot of registrar, 149 registrar all over the world. And registrar appoint the reseller to sell the domain name on behalf of registrar. And registrant is the end user, the purchaser of the domain. Another regulatory body is INA. INA is managing a IP number and also that provide a technical activity of the ICANN. It is a part of ICANN, operated by ICANN, but the technical part is managed by INA, and policy part is managed by ICANN. If you go to a registry, registrar and registrant model, what is the rule of registry? Registry is the namespace database. Organization which edit, control the database. Organization which run the authoritative range server for that namespace. Registrar is the agent which submit change request to registry on behalf of their registrar. Registrant is the entity which makes use of the domain name. There is a whose detail. Is the pronounced who is. The who is only provide the detail is the protocol which is the response that the query raised by anyone who is purchased this domain name is the detail of the purchaser of the domain name. The detail of who is the contact person, who is the technical contact person, who is the administrative contact person, everything is available on the database. Due to GDPR, who is masked on registry side, but all the data is available in the backend of the registry. If the law enforcement agency asks for any whose detail, registry can bound to provide the law enforcement agency and also advise registrant and registrar to maintain the whose data accurate. And it is available on the registry advisory. The URL is published on the presentation. There is a domain life cycle also. If anyone purchases a domain name for 1 to 10 years, the first 5 days is a 8 grace period. Registrant can change their domain name, can delete it, and maybe the complete registration amount refunded to a registrar. If the 5 days is crossed, the domain is valid for the purchaser. Suppose the purchaser is purchase a domain name for 1 year. For 1 year, after completion of 1 year, the domain is go to auto renew for a 0 to 45 days period. If the registrar wish to delete the domain name, they can delete anytime from 0 to 45 days. And if a registrar deleted, the 30 days after the deletion go to RGP. RGP where the registrar can restore the domain name in the name of registrar. During the 30 days, if the registrar not restore the domain name, then it go to 5 days in a hold period. And after 5 days, and the domain is re-available for re-registration, is available for registration. And here is the main rule, DNS abuse, how and where we to report. Document required for the make a complaint. If you are an individual, you get any complaint pertaining to a domain name, you have to written complaint, explain the complete incident to a cyber cell. There is a cyber cell is available in every state capital. You can also copy the illegal email ID. Email should be taken from the original receiver. Copy of the forwarder email should be avoided. You can get a original email ID, download it, and go to a complaint. The email content also a full header where the source, destination, IP number, everything is reflected. A copy of email and header should be both in hard copy or a soft copy. Soft copy may be in a CDR compact drive, CD format only. If the business email compromise, then there is a name of organization, originating location, originating bank name, originating bank account, receipt name, receipt bank name, recipient bank account number, recipient bank location if available, intermediary bank if available, shipped number, date, amount of transaction, additional information if available, including FFC further for further credit or FAV in favor of. There is also Ministry of MHA introduced one cell cybercrime.gov.in where initially register your using name and valid mobile number. You can receive a OTP on your mobile number. The OTP remains valid for 30 minutes. Once successful register your mobile number on the portal, you will able to report the complaint by selecting appropriate categories and subcategories. You can use the report other cybercrime option available in the portal to report other cyber crimes such as mobile crime, online social media crime, online financial fraud, ransomware, hacking, cryptocurrency crime, and online cyber traffic. You can also be a cyber volunteer to provide a safeguard to the nation. It is also available on the website. You become a volunteer. You can report any type of crime to a cyber cell, cybercrime.gov.in as a volunteer, but you are not put that you are a volunteer of cybercrime.gov.in. This is the original website snapshot where there is a two option is filing the report on cybercrime.gov.in. First is report crime related to woman or child. Second, report other crimes. Here is the field. You have to fill the form, and the red color is reflected that all the mandatory field you have to submit the detail. The mention is the asterisk in the red color. Same here. You can submit your complaint. Then way forward. This is the way where you can complain it, and you can what you get from the presentation. Always check the vulnerability of the website. How we can check? First, authenticate the website before sharing any professional data and details. Like always check HTTPS before initiating any monetary transaction. If HTTPS is there, starting with the domain name, website name is the HTTPS, means it is a SSL certificate signed. Always see the rating and review of the website of an application. Never click on any unwanted link. Always avoid advertisement links. Beware similar looking website. Already Anup cover is there, COVID, but there are few examples of the financial portal PayPal.in. Here you seen that the PayPal and the PayPal is the similar looking, but here is the PayPal.in and here is the PayPy.in. This is a I, not L. And there is a PayPal.1.in. Both are looking similar, but these three are the different websites. We were of the similar sounding website like colors.in and color.in. Both are the similar sounding, but the spelling is different. We always check the domain name of email address after the rate of for authenticity of the email. Suppose that is, for example, support at the rate nixie.in. Go check nixie.in domain or website exists. If exists, then it's okay. Check the content of the website. If the content is okay, then you can check the vulnerability of the website on the DNS checker or dig command. And you can check the authenticity of the domain name. It is a website or domain name or email ID you receive. It is the original or not. Thank you. If you have any questions. This is my presentation, and if any question, no, anything. Balaji sir, Bindu sir is here.
Yeah, he is here. Can you make him to this thing?
Yeah.
Just before going to Bindumadar sir, I request to Gopinath to just to share some of the tools that we are
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Hello everyone. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, Gopi, you are audible.
Yes, sir. So I have just shared the website. Hope this is visible.
Yeah.
So this is our portal, coednsecurity.in, and we have a health monitoring tool developed as part of this project. So in this website, one can go to the tools tab, and under that we have a drop down. We have two variants of the health report. One is a basic report. This is a basic report. I mean, it will just give a brief of the domain health and domain names health, whereas another is a detailed report. This is the detailed report. So this has many parameters, as you have seen here, and these parameters are based on like to ensure the availability, how much is a domain name available, or how good is the configuration of the name servers, which help in resolving the given domain name. All those details are captured as part of it. Like you have this whether it has a dual stack or not, whether it has a v4 for UDP and TCP, whether it has a EDNS support, meaning extended DNS support for a bigger message size. You know that DNS works on a UDP protocol, and the size limitation is 512 bytes, right? So if you want to have a transmission more than 512 bytes, then it has to have a EDNS support. Is that enabled in the name servers or not? Is it available? How about the availability of the DNS name servers? SOA check, start of authority record check, whether the start of authority records are properly configured and properly returned without any syntactical or semantical mistakes, all those things. Authoritative answer, whether the domain name is really resolved from the name servers which are authorized to reply to that. There may be some intermediate servers which have the cache, and we may receive the response from that also. So, the check is whether we are really getting the answer from the authoritative servers or not. Zone transfer, whether it is allowing for a zone transfer between the master and the slave. Recursion should not be there. Recursion should be disallowed in a name server, because if it is a recursion, meaning that it is a cache server, and we are not interested in the cache server. NSEC 3 enabled, whether if I say that I want to resolve cdac.in and have a CNAME attached to that, meaning a subdomain. Let's say that I have ax.cdac.in to be resolved, but ax.cdac.in is not present. Then it returns the next subdomain, related subdomain. Let's say that abc.cdac.in. Okay, right. So that is what is NSEC enabled. So give a genuine reply related to that subdomain. Software abstraction, as we know that every software has some or other vulnerability. So it is ideally required that we need to hide the software on which the name servers are deployed, right? So let's say that I have a bind and I'm hosting on a bind. So we should not disclose to the other users, external world, that it is using a bind software or the version of the software in which it is deployed, on which it is deployed. So that has to be hidden. So that is software abstraction. Reverse lookup. You know that forward lookup is from a domain name to an IP resolution, whereas reverse lookup is from an IP to a domain resolution. So for a name server and a domain, whether it's present or not. Resource record match. A domain name may have more than one name servers. So the resource records present in all the name server instances of a given given domain name should match with each other. There should not be discrepancy in the resource record of the name servers, right? And then we have the round trip time, the time taken for the name servers to respond for a request, and DNSSEC enabled or not. Okay, right? So these are the parameters on which we evaluate. And as far as DNSSEC is concerned, we also have more of the details present in it. I'll just give a demo. It will take a couple of minutes, between 2 to 5 minutes, as said here, because it has several internet calls going in the background to fetch the data from the internet databases and these zone files and then come back. So it will just take some time. It will slowly populate the values. So this is one of the name servers. dns3.easydns.org is one of the name servers of the domain name cdac.in. So these are the values as per this. Across would mean that it is not compliant to that parameter, and a green tick would mean that it is compliant in that way. Right. So we have got the result. There are 3 name servers: DNS3 easydns.org, DNS1 easydns.com, and DNS2.easydns.net. So these are the 3 parameters. And round trip time, we keep we maintain a database and we keep the values of several requests which have been coming to the for the domain name, and we try to capture the trend whether it's going up or down. Right. So that is the trend which we capture. So this is down. So meaning this time for this name server, the time taken round trip time was lesser than the previous attempts, average of the previous attempts which were done to this name server. So that is what is there. So if it was greater, it would have been a red arrow mark heading to the, heading upwards, pointing upwards. So that's it. Thank you. Any questions on this?
Thank you, Gopi. Yes, sir. There are any questions, we can take it, and of course we are reachable in the social media too. Any questions we can also have in this forum also, as well as in the other forums also. You can write to us. Okay. So, sir, I now like to request Mr. Bindu Madhav, sir, the Senior Director at CDAC Bangalore, to address the gathering, sir.
Yeah, good evening all. I think I just got in a bit late, but however, I just was there for Anup's talk onwards. So I think first of all, I would like to congratulate NIXI and CDAC for coming together on this very important topic, which is internationally also well debated. So especially the role and types of DNS abuses in cybersecurity. As a part of the National Cyber Security Awareness Month. I think we should not stop with this particular month-long, whatever the program which is being charted out. This has to be sort of the thing which has to be continuously looked at, so that as such, the cybersecurity itself is a moving target. So the components which are involved also will be sort of different in different types of things happening. So I think this was apt and correct time, and we should try to have many more such things to happen, so that the actual thing happening and contexting to the current things will be giving good inputs to the end user. So with this particular thing, I once again thank all the participants who participated in this particular intervention, and hope it was useful in both as a policy wise as well as the technological tools which are there, and some of the mathematical models which are there behind these tools also, which was sort of explained. If people are interested in this particular thing, I think they should play around with this particular thing, where I think Dr. Balaji will be mentioning where you can look for these tools and play around and give feedback. So thank you. Thanks for giving me this opportunity, and all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Balaji. Thank you, the entire CDAC team. Thanks for the session.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Just one small this thing. We are also having a WhatsApp forum for the people who are interested in the sessions. Maybe you can get in touch with Mr. Rajiv, or meaning Rajiv's email ID, or as well as mine, and share it in the this one, so that you can request us and we can add it to that group, and we'll share time to time, and also address your queries if you have. And right now, I'm just putting it in the chat box, and I think with this we can end it.
Yeah, we can share a URL, and anyone who can join through the URL can join the this.
Yes. That also better option. I'll just see that if I.
You have a URL of the this chart. Please share in.
I don't have right now readily available.
Okay, I am going to share it. No problem.
Fine.
Yeah. Someone Anup is here already.
Okay.
So anyone can join this group. This is the COE Center of Excellency group. There we can discuss about the DNS, about DNS abuse and DNS mitigation, everything. If you have any problem to configure of DNS and DNS tech, you can put a query from there. It is really a good group and knowledge sharing group. So I request all of you to join this group and make it fruitful for us and the country. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Bye.